The water crisis gripping drought-ravaged New South Wales will come to a head within just a few weeks when rivers and dams supplying major rural towns run completely dry, according to new predictions. For more on this, I am now joined by New South Wales Water Minister Melinda Pavey. Minister, thank you so much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
These forecasts today are very serious. We're now talking within weeks the drought crisis is predicted to come to a head. Is the situation as bad as the figures suggest?
Certainly the situation is in a really tough spot in terms of river flows and dam levels, particularly around the Northern Basin and the Macquarie Valley. But what we're doing is working with councils who are responsible for delivering their town water supplies to extend that delivery time as long as possible. So we've actually allocated more than $100 million in emergency funding from the New South Wales government. Luckily, we're in a strong financial position in New South Wales that we've been able to put that emergency funding on the table for communities like Dubbo, so we can spend $30 million finding more bores to extend that town's water supply. For example, another $10 or so million announced in Tamworth this week to put a pipeline from Chaffey Dam down to the water supply pipeline, so we stop those transmission losses, which can extend that town's water supply by another 18 months. So things are dire, and it's important that our city communities and our inland regional communities understand how tough this is. And it's not just cities such as Tamworth and Dubbo. It's our smaller communities. Already there's a lot of work that's gone on in Walgett and Brewarrina, as well as Bourke, areas affected by the very low flows and the inflows onto the Darling River, but also towns at the top of the Great Dividing Range, Tenterfield, Guyra, Walker, all towns that are putting in emergency provisions to extend their town water supplies. I think the stories today are a big wake-up call to us all, that we must do our very level best to conserve every drop of water. It is serious. When I drove through Armidale the other day to see that beautiful town at this time of year, it shouldn't, all the lawns in the main street as you drive through the streets of Armidale, they're dying and they're brown because simply we can't water. It is a serious situation, but it is up to councils to manage their local town water supplies. But what the state government is doing is coming in behind them to support them to extend those town supplies for as long as possible.
Minister, how has it come to this? If Water New South Wales projections are correct, Sydney itself could run dry within 2 years.
Simply, it has not rained properly for 3 years. It's a very important discussion point to understand that in 2016, New South Wales was virtually awash with water. The Menindee Lakes, for example, where we saw those terrible pictures earlier this year, was around 90% full. Warragamba Dam in Sydney, our biggest, most important water storage, was almost 100% full. We had Burrendong Dam full, Lachlan, the Barranjuk Dam full. All these dams were full. Our waterways were in a very luscious spot. If you cast your mind back, it was at the time of a very terrible eastern low, which really devastated the community of Lismore. So we've gone from a year of plenty to 3 years of virtually nothing. We have never seen our Sydney catchment drop in such a severe and sudden way, and the same goes for the rest of our inland communities, particularly the Northern Basin. We've had a little bit of rain through the Murray and the Murrumbidgee over the last couple of weeks, but we are just so dry in the north. And where you have communities that don't irrigate, that don't rely on dams and irrigation like Tenterfield, like Walker, like Armidale, to have those communities faced with a situation that they've never seen before. And it's simply because it is unprecedented lack of inflows, lack of rain. It is probably the most serious drought this state has ever seen. And that's what's so confronting. From in a 3-year period, we had so much, and now we have so little.
Some regional towns like Cowra, which are also at imminent risk of running dry, haven't even imposed water restrictions because they didn't realise that the situation was this bad. Is the system broken? How could they not realise?
Look, Cowra is a good council, and that the information in today's paper was in relation to the inflows that will come from Burrinjuck. It's in the Lachlan Valley. They have other town supplies that they manage, but it is a wake-up call for us all that we need to be alert. We need to put in, good restrictions and tough restrictions. We are facing our second stage of restrictions in Sydney. According to our Metropolitan Water Plan, that trigger will come around February if we don't have inflows. And the Bureau of Meteorology is saying that don't expect much rain into the middle of next year. I so hope they are wrong, but we will stand and work with our communities to extend that flow and that access. And we have been carting water to some villages across New South Wales already. We're currently carting to Guyra whilst we finish the pipeline from Malpas Dam in Armidale across to Guyra. So there has been emergency work and provisions going on, but I fear it's just the beginning. But the Premier, Gladys Berejiklian, and the Deputy Premier, John Barilaro, through our Expenditure Review Committee processes of Cabinet, have released funding to support our communities across regional New South Wales. But it is important we all understand the severity of this drought and simply the lack of rain. And let's hope the Bureau of Meteorology is wrong. But if we don't have good rains towards the middle of next year, we're in a really tough spot in many of our towns.
Minister, just finally, as you know, a key vote is going to be taking place in the New South Wales Upper House this week. MPs will vote on amendments designed, for a bill designed to decriminalise abortion, to deal with concerns around gender selection and late-term abortions. Now, you've already declared your support for the bill. Will you be comfortable voting for it again once the changes are made?
Look, I'm looking forward to seeing what those amendments are. I mean, I don't support gender selection. There's no way anybody could. I don't support late-term abortions, but I do, like the majority of the population, support the need to get this out of the criminal code. It is a tough issue. People have very, very strong views. There is no doubt about that. But I think a sensible approach, a considered approach is needed, and we will look at those amendments as members of Parliament, and we will deal with those with our own conscience. It's been a tough issue for a lot of people. It is very emotional, but I think we all want to do the right thing by ourselves, our own conscience and our communities. And I know for my communities, access to GPs, access to family planning can sometimes be a very big challenge. We have a shortage of doctors in my communities, despite the fact that our nation has one of the highest doctor-to-population ratios in the Western world. We do have challenges caused by those lack of doctors and lack of services in regional communities. But this is a tough issue. We will work our way through it, and our focus will be, continue to be, driving good government in New South Wales, supporting our drought-ravaged communities. It is really tough out there. You talk to farmers, they're taking their breeding herds to market. They shouldn't have to do that, but they are having to make those tough decisions. We'll work through all of that, and we will be a good government, and we are a good government, and we will focus on the job at hand and deal with all the issues that come forward.